What industry secret do you know that most people don't? If you find an extra nugget in your order, it wasn't a mistake. You got a cool employee. The New York Times bestseller list has a lot of people on it who buy massive numbers of their own books. Worked with a lot of banks and their systems. You wouldn't believe how old and fragile they are. It's a wonder it's not all coming crashing down. The reason why the kid fell off the Orlando free fall ride. Any ride with an over-the-shoulder restraint system works by using a proximity sensor to let the computer system know where the restraint is locked. The ride can't move unless all the sensors sense the correct metal at the correct position. On some rides you can move the sensor a few millimeters for proper alignment. Not enough to make a difference. On the free fall ride, someone in management might have wanted to modify a few seats for larger guests. Someone might have told a maintenance worker to move the sensor which allowed the ride to start, with the restraint in a position not in the original design. With this modification, the restraint would be at more of a 45 or so degree angle instead of directly downward. This may or may not have been done with an engineer's approval. This may or may not have been done with the ride vendor's permission. Any procedure like this is strictly prohibited from any standpoint in the amusement rides industry. I can't explain why they thought it was okay. In most situations you wouldn't be able to move the sensor much without detaching the bracket and moving the whole thing to a different location. Again, this wouldn't even be discussed anywhere I have ever worked. But they might have at Icon Park. The details of this mechanical procedure never made the headlines in Florida because all the lawsuits were settled. In the end, someone decided to change the position of that sensor. We will probably never know who. There is probably a maintenance worker who was ordered to do so. I've worked on enough restraints to know that it was not an accident. Personally, I would have refused to do it, and so would almost everyone that works on these things. Trained artist here. Most oil paints are made with very toxic substances, as are most paint thinners and mediums. Every single one of my teachers was either very sick, cancer, Meniere's disease, or a bit crazy, eating chalk, licking pallets. All incredible artists I was privileged to learn from. One lesson I learned very well. I wear gloves and sometimes a mask when I paint. Edit. I mentioned Meniere's because one of my favorite teachers had it. I worked closely with him and his suffering holds a large place in my memories of school. While I think the exposure to toxins didn't do him any favors, I should not have implied a correlation. I apologize. To those asking, no paint was licked off pallets. They had just been cleaned with denatured alcohol and he always led with, "Now you could eat off them," before waggling his tongue on the glass. Loved the shock factor. That guy did. Cannabis testing labs with higher fees will also return higher THC numbers. Most industrial places are really not as well maintained as they should be. I worked in politics. There are a lot of people who write to a politician like they're a celebrity. They receive love letters and all kinds of weird stuff. There's also quite a sizable part of their mail that is comprised of people asking for a photo with an autograph. Way more than you think. Some because they're admirers. Others because they collect them. And then some other cases you don't really want to know about. I've worked for a female politician. Trust me, you don't want to know. The dirty little secret within the secret is that the politicians I knew didn't sign anything. They had a machine that did all the signing for them. So technically the autographs were not even real. The news about Boeing is not a surprise to me at all. The amount of resources that they are able to delegate in an effort to deter whistleblowers is unfathomable to the average American, EU citizen. If your baby goes to a nursery, daycare, chances are those weren't their first steps, words, etc. that you witnessed. Industry standard is to not tell parents when these things happen as it makes them feel bad. I've seen kids up and walking about the room for weeks, even months before their parent proudly announced at drop-off that they took their first steps. Last night, I'm a casino manager. It is definitely possible, more likely than you think, to win money in the short term. For example, if you walk in, bet on red, black on roulette, it's reasonably close to 50-50. Not quite because of zero. You might do this once. Double your money and leave. Congratulations. You will always lose in the long term. Always. Anyone that thinks they have some kind of system is a sucker. A game would not make it into the casino floor if the maths have not been rigorously checked and long-term simulations run to confirm. Exception to this is poker. The casino will always have a rake or time charge to make their money, but there is no reason you cannot consistently win money if you are skilled enough. I saw how slot machines for casinos were designed. Don't play slots. Some appetizers are the most labor-intense items on the menu to make. For example, dumplings takes one worker about an hour to make 12-15 orders. If you want to know where I'm getting at, if a restaurant offers a plethora of appetizers options, then there's a high chance a lot of them are store-bought and resold because there's no feasible way to prepare several orders for each item on the menu. I'm a server. No matter how much we insist it's okay that you are keeping the entire restaurant open after we've closed, please know we are 100% lying. We will get fired if we deviate from anything other than pure delight that you are keeping us from going home. We dread it. Please don't believe us. On the Texas House floor, people push the buttons to vote for members who aren't even present that day. This happens multiple times on every single thing they vote for. When I used to work for Hyatt, if the minibar was used and not declared but the value was under $15, they wouldn't bother billing for it because it gave off an appearance that it wasn't synonymous with a 5-star hotel. I wrote an original movie a few years ago. Totally original. Totally my idea. When it finally aired on TV, it said, based on a true story. Also, it wasn't Fargo. When we tell you it isn't, in the back, we mean it. I make wildlife films for big streamers and broadcasters. The sound is all either library or Foley. Google sucks so much now because around a decade ago, they abandoned the measurement known as page utility, which just measured the usefulness of the site itself. Instead, they migrated to expertise authority trust, which had good intentions of stopping the proliferation of bad info. But instead it basically resulted in prioritizing large corporations and capital over any sites created by average people. The contract workers known as raters they employed to help determine the best search results became an echo chamber, as there were strict demands on exactly what the right answers were in most cases. And straying from the expectations of Big G resulted in poor reviews and possible firing. Of course, we were not allowed to say the G word, we could only say, the client. It's about to get worse, too. They just laid off a huge swath of them.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.